Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Movie Mates video. I'm Matthew, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Oh,
Hey man, great to see you. So today we're back with another overdue review. That's what we're going to call this series, while we attempt to catch up with movies that have released during 2020 that we may have missed. And today we're reviewing New Mutants, a film which has finally came out after after it must is it nearly years of speculation and delays. It's finally hit our screen, so to speak, or
yeah.
not even
It, it
digital.
its first release date was April 2018, so it's
Wow.
two and a half years late.
Yeah, because I remember there was a trailer for it years ago, and then it just maybe just never came out for some delays or production issues. But it's was this movie released in cinemas or was it just straight to digital? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was released in cinemas in August, for a brief window, but obviously we were in the midst of the pandemic here, so
Yes,
we couldn't
yeah,
exactly go out. Me and Matthew, actually, the last film that we saw in person was Sonic the Hedgehog in February. So
I know.
if you think that like we're going out and risking anything, we're not.
We're not, yeah.
We actually haven't been in the cinema despite loving it since February, unfortunately.
I know. It feels like years ago to me that we went to cinema to see Sonic. Like that was a
It,
lifetime
and it
ago.
was a bad
It
experience as
was a
well
bad
because
experience.
we were several minutes late. Whose fault was that? Was
Uh,
that my dad's fault that we were late?
I don't think it was anyone's fault. I think it was just one of those things of like that movie was. I can't remember exactly, but it was a pretty busy night that I can recall that during that screening. But anyway, yes, today we're back with a New Mutants review, and it's gonna be. Are we gonna do just full spoilers because it's been out for a while? We're gonna do non-spoilers for
Yeah, I think we need to go full spoilers. I don't
full
think
spoilers.
anyone's
Yeah,
like I don't think anyone who's like, somewhat interested in seeing this film. I think either you're interested enough to see it
sure.
or you're not. Like I don't
That's a
think
good
anyone's
point.
going
Yeah.
to be like, I'll hear their thoughts first.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that's a good
think
point. That's a good point. Yeah, but
most people are thinking it's probably going to be quite shit.
yeah, this movie did get panned pretty much critically. That didn't really surprise me, but we'll get into our thoughts. We'll get into our thoughts. But yeah, just before we kick off today, thanks very much everyone who supported us recently. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on New Mutants down below if you've seen it. We'd really love to hear them. And yeah, if you want to email us for any podcast suggestions or anything, moviematespodcast@gmail.com. You guys know the drill. And yeah, shall we crack on, buddy, with the spoiler review? Any opening remarks from you, dude?
Well, I'll just say right now, it's quite a bad sign when a film opens with, narration where someone's trying to be like really poetic and meaningful.
I know.
If the word proverb is brought up, it's
Yeah,
probably going to be a shit movie.
absolutely.
So that was sort of a bad reaction immediately.
Yeah, it's a classic X-Men movie thing, isn't it? Narration over like a very intense scene or a very jaw-dropping backdrop. It's a classic X-Men, which is weird because this film feels absolutely nothing like the original X-Men films, which I quite enjoyed actually.
Yeah, I mean the thing about the demon bear sort of had symbolism throughout the film, and then obviously comes back and is quite heavy-handedly referenced in further narration at the end of the film. But
Yeah.
I think the meaning is there, but just going in, I was like, oh, this might be rough.
Yeah, no, I agree. It definitely is a slow burn towards the start. And it's weird because, like, I think this movie sort of would have potential for a sequel or a spin-off or something like that, which we'll get into later on. But one of my first notes I have written down is I thought it was quite a similar tone to the movie Glass. I don't know if you sort of picked that up, but it's sort of like the mental asylum kind of supernatural abilities. I thought it was a really similar film to that. What are your thoughts, dude?
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I would say also Fantastic Four. I had sort of big
Yeah, yeah, the
similarities
2015
towards
one,
a lot
yeah.
of it's yeah, a lot of it's set in a facility, and even the background with a lot of production troubles, sort of
Yeah.
familiar in that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's weird because this film has like a pretty stellar cast. Like there's a lot of big young actors in here, like Anya Taylor-Joy, Maisie Williams, and is it Charlie Heaton who was in Stranger Things as well? Like
Yes.
they're very talented actors. So yeah, like it's not like there was clearly a big budget behind it as well.
I mean, did you think any of them actually did a good job though?
I'm a sucker for Anya Taylor-Joy, so I thought she was good, but everyone else, I'll take or leave.
Yeah, I mean, she is like an abhorrent character. Like
Yeah.
we'll go on to talk about that character. She is genuinely terrible. But I think her accent work is probably the best.
Yeah, no, it was
I
good.
would say Maisie Williams' Scottish accent a bit questionable.
Yeah.
I would say the worst of it though is in her actual introduction scene within like the therapy circle. It sounds sort of Eastern European. It's slash American. Like
Yeah, it
it is a
does,
bit
doesn't
off.
it? It is,
Uh,
yeah.
and Anya Taylor-Joy is sort of like in the style of like Jodie Comer and Killing Eve. It's quite exaggerated, but it's not inaccurate as such.
Mhm.
And the Charlie Heaton's Kentucky accent. How did we feel about that?
Is anyone such a diehard fan of the Cannonball character that they? It's a sort of similar thing we talked about with Black Mask in Birds of Prey. Like, does he have to be American? Does Charlie Heaton's character have to be like from Kentucky or something? Like, it's not integral to the character, is it? Like, just be where's
Yeah,
he from? England or something?
yeah. I mean, again, it's over the top, but I'm sure someone has that accent. Like have you heard any of this controversy over the new like Emily Blunt and Jamie Dornan film?
I haven't.
It's
No,
called like
I'll Google it here.
Mountain something.
Is it a
I don't
recent
know,
one?
but
Yeah.
it's upcoming.
Oh,
And it was sort of like slated in the news because of the Irish accents that are
Wild
in the
Mountain
film.
Time.
Yes, so like Jamie Dornan plays a farmer, an Irish farmer, and then Emily Blunt plays his neighbor, and it's a romance. But apparently, well, according to people in the news, the Irish accents are you know
Yeah.
over exaggerated and offensive in their opinion. But I mean, having observed a fair amount of Irish accents, in media, and I've obviously met Irish people in person. We know the accent fairly well,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
there's a broad spectrum, and I think you go from very subtle to very over exaggerated. But I mean, those accents do exist. It's not like the it's not the average accent, but
Yeah. Oh
the
yeah,
over
for
the top,
sure.
ones do exist. I mean, there's sort of a stereotypical Northern Irish accent.
Yeah,
So
there is.
if that was in a film, it wouldn't be inaccurate. It just wouldn't represent, I would say, the average Northern
It's a really
Irish
good
person.
point, Callum. Yeah, for sure. Like Charlie Heaton's accent, it sort of was in a similar sort of vein to how Daniel Craig did in Knives Out. I thought it was very, very similar. It
Yeah,
tried to like, which is fine. I thought that actually added somewhat to the Daniel Craig character in Knives Out. But here, I thought it was okay. But like I said, most of these actors, although very talented, I could take or leave. Apart from, I thought Anya Taylor-Joy was good because she's clearly comfortable in this role because obviously, like I said, it's very similar film to Glass, and she's been in those kind of films as well. And yeah, I thought she was really good. And it's weird because I think is in the comics is her character like the sister, or is she like related to Colossus in some kind of way as well?
yeah. It's his sister.
Sister, yeah. But I suppose yeah, that has a little tie-in for the X-Men fans there as well. But it's weird, like we were saying, it doesn't really feel like an X-Men film to be honest. It sure doesn't.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it doesn't feel like an X-Men film because it sort of has, I would say, the biggest connections to Logan,
It does,
which
yeah,
also
yeah,
feels very, very different from that. And I would say, this sort of this acting as something set before Logan establishes the Essex Corporation, which was previously teased in X-Men Apocalypse, and which we would have seen more of in future films, but unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be.
yeah.
But this meant to be a very intelligent, secretive organization. They're not very good at it, are they?
No, they're not.
I
They
mean,
never are, these
you know,
corporations.
Dr. Reyes, has the agenda of sort of, gaining these prisoners' trust because they eventually want to, emotionally manipulate them into becoming killers for their organization. I
Yeah.
would say if you want to convince them that they're patients, maybe don't chain and handcuff them to the bed as a way of introduction.
Yeah, it's always the go-to rule in the rule book of being a bad guy. Never reveal that you're the bad guy straight away, kind of thing. But yeah, like on the Dr. Reyes character, I thought the fact that she was also like openly like a mutant was quite interesting. Her power was cool. Because it's weird because like I think the film, although I said it probably had a big budget, clearly not a lot of it was on CGI because until the last sort of 10 minutes, there's not a lot of CGI, which is okay. I think that the performances are decent enough to not warrant that. But yeah, I thought her character was reasonably interesting. It was quite similar to oh who was the villain in Glass again? Oh, what was her name? what's the actress's
It
name?
was Sarah Paulson, but
Sarah
I don't remember
Paulson.
her character name's Ellie something.
Yeah, Sarah sort of Sarah Paulson's character quite very similar to that. And yeah, like you said
Oh,
about the Essex,
I think it was Ellie Temple.
that's
I
it.
might be making that up.
We'll go with it. And like you said, dude, like the Essex Corporation was. I'm glad that plot line at least went somewhere.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And if you want to quickly talk about effects, because you brought them up there,
Yeah.
I would say some of the power effects are a bit questionable, but I would say Cannonball is definitely the most impressive for me.
Oh yeah, for
And then
sure.
Demon Bear at the end, I think is honestly incredible.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cannonball and Demon Bear are right up there. Magic is good as well. I think. And yeah, I think the fact that they actually used like a real wolf for what was it, Raina is her name, like Maisie Williams' character.
Rain, yeah.
Rain. Yeah, I thought the fact that they didn't use a CGI wolf, thank God, because that could have been an absolute car crash. If that was the case.
I mean, I would say that Sunspot is genuinely horrendous. Like,
Sunspot's not
it's
great.
terrible.
The X-Men Days of
It
Future
kind of
Past
reminds
version
me
of
of
him is quite good.
it reminds me a bit of El Diablo in Suicide
Yeah,
Squad.
it kind of
That was
reminds me.
hideous.
It reminds me of Machine Gun Kelly in Project Power a little bit as well.
Yes, no, that's actually an amazing comparison. Yeah, 100%. And
But yeah,
that
see
was
the El
like,
Diablo. Yeah,
I mean, I would say that this probably had a smaller budget than Project Power because
probably did. Yeah,
I mean, this was I think 50-ish million dollars.
yeah,
It
around
was
that. Yeah,
very low for sort of a what they were pitching as a blockbuster. But yeah, I expected higher. I expected a little bit above for Sunspot at least.
yeah. I know, dude. I know, and like it's weird because that, like I was sort of saying off this off pod or off video, like I think that the movie does feel quite similar to the Gifted TV show, in the sense that like there's quite a lot of similar sort of characters there, and I think even the sort of tone, like this movie, I suppose, was credited as being like the first comic book horror film that we've ever seen. I don't know if I would go as far as say it is an outright horror film, in that sense. But there is a few like elements of that, sure. But like it's as much as a horror film, in my opinion, as like a Venom would be, in that case, or something along those lines, where it's like a subtle like dark comedy in a way, maybe not comedy, but like a very dark sort of action film. What are your thoughts on that, dude? Because I remember a lot of people say hyping this up as like a horror film, especially the trailer as well.
Yeah, I mean, just to quickly address like the Gifted thing, I imagine most of the people listening to this haven't actually seen the Gifted because it was cancelled for a reason. No one watched it. But it's sort of quite a lot about the persecution of mutants, and I feel like that is present here. Because they're being held captive, and I
Yeah,
think the vibe is sort of similar and continuous.
for sure.
And the initial trailer released for this film was on Friday the 13th. So they
Mm,
obviously played into that. They played up
yeah,
the horror elements in the trailer, and it was sort of a Suicide Squad effect of, the reaction to the trailer affected the studio's mind about how to, eventually edit and put the film out.
hmm,
And they planned on doing all these reshoots to amp up the horror, but apparently they never happened. Whether it was budgetary reasons, I think it was mostly just because Josh Boone didn't want to change his vision. He stuck quite rigidly.
stuck by it. Yeah.
And yeah, have you read anything about like the behind the scenes stuff?
I hadn't read anything about that, dude, to be honest with you. I read that something, and this is probably a lot different to what you were going to suggest, but I had read something that since Marvel, or sorry, uh, since Disney had acquired 20th Century Fox pretty much in the middle or towards the end of this film's production, like the Marvel Studios were planning to reshoot it, but they just never did. But what was the production that you were going to suggest, mate, the background?
Well, it seems like, the sort of Fox working with Josh Boone was very similar to Fox working with Josh Trank on Fantastic Four, which is, what I sort of alluded to earlier. He had a lot of strong ideas about what needed to be in the script. They would bring in different script writers to sort of make amendments and, change things, try to play up the horror. Reshoots never happened. They kept changing the script, but Josh Boone would just like resubmit a new draft where he like took out the changes, and probably like change things to make them even more like provocative.
Yeah.
And there was one character he insisted on having, and it was a male character that wasn't named. Like as in they haven't been named in the media as to what character. He was probably gonna like bastardize like a famous X-Men character. But he was
Probably.
gonna have like a male misogynist character who like loved drawing his penis on the walls. Like apparently he was adamant that needed to be in the
It needs
film,
to be in
and like
there,
that
it
was
really does.
yeah, and that was like the one thing they were like able to like claw away from him. But otherwise, the film's totally his vision, which is why they're not happy with it. Because they wanted, at least by the end, they wanted a horror film, because that's what the audience clearly wanted.
It goes to show you, mate, like for every successful film, or a lot of our, if not all of our favorite films, like you have to have a studio and a director who's like in sync with each other. Like if one of those is out of place, there's always like a mismatch there, especially like in the film industry. Like we've seen that with like Fantastic Four, and to a certain degree like the production and stuff and elements of this film. And I don't think the delays and the reshoots and just delays in hitting theaters really helped this film at all. And certainly the coronavirus pandemic didn't help it either. But I think to be fair, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't have surprised me if this film just went straight to DVD. Like I think it probably did flop at the box office, to be fair. But given the circumstances of the pandemic, that's every film pretty much has. So we'll not hold it against it too much. But I don't know. Like, do you think there is a certain? I think there definitely is a podcast in this, but do you think there is a certain bias towards Disney Marvel projects towards Fox Marvel projects? Because I think the hate for this film is quite undeserved. I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's a really good film. Like, do you think there's a bias
so
there?
do you mean audience perception?
Yes, I suppose so, because I think maybe because a lot of audiences have grown up with the MCU as well, and maybe because the storylines are more interconnected and interweaved, there's more continuity there, so people enjoy that element. Whereas the X-Men films, like you sort of were hinting at earlier, buddy, we've got Logan, post-apocalyptic Western. We've got like Days of Future Past, time travel. The original X-Men films, which are just classic blockbuster films, and then this film, which is a horror film in many ways. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think there's a bias towards Marvel projects that are on the Disney spectrum or not?
I mean, I don't want to get like too nitpicking. Like people enjoy what they enjoy, but Marvel films are barely films. They are just a bright, colorful thing to look at for 2 hours where you shut your brain off and have fun.
Yeah, of course,
family. It's family friendly fun, so there's absolutely nothing to judge about that. Style of filmmaking, and people clearly respond to it, and good on them. But I just think there's less to get wrong when your only priorities are like make a fun film,
I agree.
have a couple of cheap laughs, make it look pretty and fun and colorful. It's not like
there's no risks.
There's no like nuance, or they don't claim to be like intellectual films that make you think. You don't go like, oh, what was the morality of this character? That's
sure,
not their purpose.
Of course. Yeah.
I just think that these have different purposes, and I think because they tailor them for an older audience, that sort of shuts off some some sections of potential audience members. And I think because I think a lot of people championing the quality of Marvel films are younger people, and if they sort of don't have that like vocal minority behind them with these sort of more adult spinned ones, I think the media perception of it's maybe different.
I think you've constructed that really well, buddy, to be honest with you. I'd have to agree. I think, like you were saying, that one thing I want to credit Marvel, or I'll rephrase this, because Marvel film, what I'm saying about Marvel films is quite broad. Like the MCU, they don't claim to be like Oscar worthy, really character defining character studies or anything like that. They're just there is a beeping in my background. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's maybe like carbon monoxide. My family's carbon monoxide detector.
No, I think it's my.
I'll be back in 1 minute.
It's me. No, it's me.
Are you sure?
Yeah, for sure. It's me. It's our kitchen.
I thought I heard like my mom shouting though. Like, is that us?
Double check. But yeah, just what I was saying there, dude. Like the Marvel film, the MCU, the producers never claimed to be like, like I was saying, Oscar worthy, or they never claim to be like character pieces. They're always, they know what they are, and I think that's why they market their films towards a slightly younger audience than this film would have done. And there's nothing wrong in that. I think there's definitely a place for the Marvel films and the DC films, because the DC films, I think, overall are becoming more and more like the Marvel films. So, we've seen that with Shazam, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. So we've seen that as well. But no, I think this film, it's quite unique these days, because apart from maybe Sony, I don't really see any other studios going this way with Marvel characters. So it's pretty refreshing. I thought it was a much needed break from the classic world ending Thanos sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do just think that like Disney are marketing experts.
Oh
I think
yeah,
that
for
they
sure. Yeah.
market their films exceptionally. They don't create false expectations. They have trailers that are as good as their films, whereas I think Fox and Sony make incredible trailers and then films that are pretty good, but then your expectations have been heightened to a certain level, and then they're
Yeah,
like drastically lower, in
that's
comparison to the
true.
quality of the film.
That's a good
So
point.
I think if they just sort of met in the middle somewhere, and people's expectations were at the right level, then I think
That's
the
a good
critical
point.
perception would maybe be a bit more favorable.
For sure, dude. I think that's a great point. Yeah. But going back to the movie, movies as a whole, like, I think one thing I really enjoyed was like the character backstory behind each character and why they're all brought to this place. We've seen that they all have like a tragic incident, be it like killing people in a mine, or being in a like being persecuted in a religious sense. So no, I thought that was really interesting. It added a nice depth to each character, shall we say?
Yeah, and I sort of thought going in, like, why is Danny the main character? Why are we seeing her backstory at the beginning? But then I think that really led into a smart direction where they then used her powers to show everybody else's backstories, because
Absolutely,
that was their
absolutely.
biggest fear. I think it was really smart, a really smart way, instead of just like awkward flashbacks. I thought it
Completely,
really
yeah.
fit.
Absolutely, dude, for sure.
But the one massive thing that surprised me about the film, and I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, because I I know for one character it definitely wasn't the intention of the film, but I did not expect to find so many of the characters so detestable. And there's two characters I want to pinpoint. I think the obvious is Ileana, Magic. You know,
Fair.
because I mean, within 30 seconds of meeting her, she's just racist. Like they sort of call her like nasty and bitter, and sort of quite softened words. She's just racist. Let's not sugarcoat it.
Yeah,
She's not a good person.
yeah,
She's immediately antagonistic towards Danny with no reason.
yeah.
And it's not like they're a close community or something, and she feels threatened by her like inclusion in the new group. They're very disconnected from each other. So I don't see why, she would immediately object her inclusion in the group, aside from the fact that she really has an issue with her race.
Yeah, I think that is, I definitely think you're on the right path there, dude. And I think it probably is intentional for the character. Well, I hope it is intentional. I think it definitely is intentional for the character. I think that a lot of the characters in the group aren't, they're not supposed to be like the Captain America style, like good guy, like 100%. I think one of those other characters that I don't know if you were going to say, but maybe for me it was Sunspot. Wasn't a huge fan of him, but I think, yeah, you're right. Like Magic and Sunspot for me were the two ones where I was just like, oh god. Even though like Annie Taylor-Joy is like amazing, I thought like her character, I could really obviously see. Like we always talk about seeing ourselves in the character. I really couldn't see myself in any of those two characters anyway.
Yeah, no, she delivers her lines exceptionally. It's just that the lines are
Yeah.
like really awful, and
Mm.
I think it is the purpose of the film to make her a character, an unlikable character, at least in the beginning, and then I think they want her to be redeemed by the end. I think that's
Mm.
their intention with her
I
sort of
agree.
sacrificing herself to fight Demon Bear. I think that's the intention of the film, that's her moment of redemption. But I don't think they hit that note hard enough. But no, the second character that I had actually was Rain, or Wolfsbane, I think is her sort of superhero name. And there's one moment in the film, and it's maybe I think her second scene in the film, where I was just like, oh no.
What is
And
it?
she's a very religious character. She has a religious background. But I think there's one moment where she uses her religious rhetoric in a very toxic manner, and that's when Danny is considering suicide by jumping off the clock tower, and Rain talks Danny out of it by telling her that she'll go to hell, which
Yes.
insinuates that
Yeah.
she's a bad person for having suicidal thoughts. When that I think it's quite an insulting
Oh yeah.
way
It
to
is, yeah.
use your religion, and that just sort of made me
No, that's, yeah. That's a really
dislike
good
the
point.
character,
I
because
forgot about that moment actually. Yeah.
obviously I hold no disdain for religious people, but religious people who use that to sort of connect mental health with with
Thin, kind of,
uh
so to speak.
yeah, with like more with moral bankruptcy, like
Yeah.
saying that they
Yeah.
deserve to
Yeah.
go to hell. because that's God's will. You know, it didn't sit right with me,
No,
especially
I agree with you, dude. Yeah,
because
for
then, you know,
sure.
they sort of pitch her as a morally righteous character throughout the film, and I'm like, that one moment just sullied the character for me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and dude, I'm with you for sure. And I'm glad throughout the film I did I did warm up to that Danny and Rain relationship. I thought it was quite sweet by the end. But there's one relationship. I think the film is quite short. You know, it's incredibly short these days for a film. And I would have liked to see a potential Sunspot magic romance continued in there as well, because we sort of see it in the pool scene, but we don't. It doesn't really go much further than that, really. But no, I would have. I actually thought the film wasn't really that much of a drag. You know, I thought for the first 10 or 15 minutes, maybe a slow burn, but I could have easily sat and watched 20 more minutes of this, half an hour, to be honest with you, buddy. What about yourself?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I actually honestly felt more of a romantic chemistry between like Sam and Sunspot. You know, I think Cannonball and Sunspot easily could have been, uh, you
Yeah,
know, a romantic relationship. You know,
yeah,
because I felt this sort of nice bromance, and you know, it felt that they had like a capacity to open up to each other that no other
good point.
characters in the film really do. You know, they sort of try to orchestrate that between Rain and Rain and Danny, but you know, it sort of falls flat a little bit for me. And you know, I think Sam and Roberto would have actually made
It's a good shout.
a better one.
It's
I
a
mean,
good shout.
especially because I would say the one moment that I was like, "What are you doing?" was like when like Rain and Danny were like trying to get off with each other on someone's grave. I was just like, "Oh,
You're like,
could you
oh.
be more disrespectful?"
I know, dude. Like, I suppose, like, I think the film, in a sense, the culmination of all the characters, it kind of reminds me of how the Runaways did it in the TV show. I think because obviously similar age group, similar sort of storyline there, and in the sense that, you know, supernatural abilities. So I thought it was quite similar in that sense. And it was weird because like I've only seen one season of that, so I can't comment on the integrity of that argument, but for me, I thought it was quite similar, to be honest with you. Maybe The Runaways is slightly more jovial in in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, even tonally, sort of a slow burn to like the big action sequence at the end. You know, I sort of feel like that is how an art, like you know, a season of that show went.
Mm.
I've just seen the first two out of the three seasons. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. And in this film, Ileana actually, you know, probably my favorite quirk of her character is Lockheed,
Yeah,
her companion, but you know, who she speaks to as a puppet. But we see by the end of the film that he is a physical being that exists in her limbo world. But in the final battle, at least for you know a few minutes, she brings him back into the real world. And if he is her best friend, I don't know why she doesn't bring him back into the real world if that's
forever.
possible all the time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I know because like it's sort of a similar relationship to like I know I've just compared this movie to so many Marvel TV shows, but like the Lockjaw sort of thing with the Inhumans, like that sort of like companion sidekick. I thought it would have been quite cool just for that character just to be in that film just from the get go. To be honest, I thought it was quite refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, I think a better reveal would have been. I mean, I honestly, I think it's cute that she carried around the puppet. I
Yeah,
think that was kind of a cute quirk for the character. It was one of the things, one of the few things I actually liked about her. But I think a funnier thing would have maybe been, you know, what they're doing with sort of like the Meek character in the Thor films. You know,
yeah.
where I think you know it's like a silent character for most of the film, and you think she's maybe crazy and can, you know, hear his voice inside her head. But then maybe you find out in the final scene that it's like that he actually has like you know a voice that can speak English and is like a really well known actor.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I
that
think
would have been
that
good.
could be
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, that's a good shot. Actually, yeah, I love that. I love that. Like, that's a good shot. But actually, I would have got that. Looking at my notes here, buddy, I don't have any other massive points apart from the smiling men. I thought they were sort of like they're pretty cool visuals. I thought they kind of remember like the Slender Man, in that sense, which the Slender Man just he freaks me out. But anyway, yeah, I thought they were pretty cool. You know, I remember seeing a few photos of them a few months ago that we were going to cover for like a news pod or something, but whenever like I never managed to get it in because like it wasn't massive news because this movie was like just getting delayed. So I thought, uh,
I thought they were going to put it in the bin. I just didn't think they'd release
yeah,
it because
no,
they're
yeah,
obviously
I'm the same.
you know because you know you have the budget cost, then you have the marketing costs, and then you have the release costs. And sometimes it's honestly better to just bin it than you know to put it out there and you know massively flop. You know because
Yeah,
sometimes you don't like the embarrassment either. You know it can sort of like do big damage to your brand. Uh,
Yeah.
I only had one final point, and it
Go
was it
for it,
was one of the
buddy.
final pieces of dialogue of the film. The dialogue throughout, like, I like the general story concept. A lot of the pieces of dialogue are questionable at best. The
That's a fair
final
point.
one that made me like physically like gag, like, because I predicted it as well. There's a line of dialogue where Danny says, "You guys saved me," and then Rain responds, "Are you kidding, Danny? You saved us." And like I
Beautifully
physically
delivered,
nearly
sir.
vomited.
Beautifully delivered.
Physically nearly vomited.
That's a classic cliche superhero movie line in many respects, isn't it? That's one that always gets in there towards the end for sure.
Oh, it's embarrassing, because it's another thing where you have a lot of in films like this, you have two characters meet, and the next day they're like declaring their love for each other.
Yeah,
It was kind of like that without the love word thrown out.
it
It was
was.
basically as though she's like changed their life in half a day or something. It was a bit heavy handed.
Yeah, it was quite similar to the final line in Shrek Forever After when like Shrek goes, Fiona, I was the one who rescued you from the tower. No, it was you that rescued me. And then the roll credits, it was kind of similar vibe to that. But like, no, I know what you mean. Some of the writing is, it's not Chef's Kiss. It's, to be
But
honest,
I
it's
feel like that's maybe earned after four films, with the
sure,
Shrek franchise. But
sure.
after like one film, and they're like, you know, oh, we can't
Yeah,
live
I know.
our life
Yeah,
without you. You're a part of the team.
I know what you
Not
mean,
for me.
dude. I know what you mean. Well, listen, buddy, have you got any more remarks for the film, dude, or we should hop into ratings?
Well, I was just curious if you knew anything about the since deleted end credit scenes.
I didn't, mate. No, please share. Please
Okay,
share.
so there were two that were filmed. So I'll tell you the less interesting one. So there was one that was initially filmed, then scrapped. Then there was the second one that was filmed, and that was sort of the idea that they were going to leave it there. But then that was scrapped again. The second one featured Antonio Banderas playing Roberto's dad, and he's sort of like this I think Brazilian crime lord, and then they were going to move the film to that area of the world, and that's where the second film was going to be set. The second one was Antonio Banderas playing Roberto's crime lord father, but the first one, which was going to be incredible,
Go
and I
for it.
desperately want to see it, was John Hamm playing Mr. Sinister.
That
So
sounds great.
uh,
Yeah, that's a great casting. Yeah.
this entire film obviously is it's sort of a go between between X-Men Apocalypse and Logan, where we first saw the tease to the Essex Corp, then we see it in action training killers, and if the film had ended with the introduction of Mr. Sinister,
Love
it would
that.
have blown my mind,
Absolutely.
and I
Yeah.
can't believe they scrapped it. But
Yeah.
Fox has sort of a good reputation with villains of at least trying to make them look comic accurate, especially as of late. I actually really like the look of Apocalypse. I
No,
know
me
I know
too.
a lot of
Yeah.
people didn't.
I like
I
it.
think it was a good crack at doing the comic counterpart.
I think the Sentinels
And
look
I
okay for
think
the most part as well.
the Sentinels, do you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think definitely Mr. Sinister probably looked fantastic, and
Yeah.
I want to see it so badly.
I
I don't
know.
know how that didn't leak, because it was like scrapped like years ago, like a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I don't know how that possibly didn't leak.
Dude, that's what I would have loved X-Men Apocalypse to introduce. Because I think it sort of that's what maybe disappoints me a little bit about Logan, the fact that it didn't lean towards the Essex Corp so much. But that would have been, especially John Hamm as well. Like that's sort of perfect
That's
casting.
incredible
Yeah. Oh
casting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. I would have loved to see that.
I
Um,
think that like this movie was initially meant to take place in the 80s and be a sequel to X-Men Apocalypse, but then after the sort of the panning critically of that, they decided to switch it up and move it to the 21st century. But I feel like if they had put it in the 80s, had Mr. Sinister, then had the New Mutants team up with the X-Men, and then take down Mr. Sinister in a subsequent X-Men
that's
film,
a good shout.
that would have been
Amazing.
insane. Like
Oh yeah,
it
for
would have
sure.
rivaled, the mainstream MCU films, I
I
think.
agree. I agree, mate. For sure. I would have loved that. Absolutely. I would still like to see a sequel to this or a spin-off TV show. To be honest with you, I think it has real potential in there. Um,
I really really want to see like a Marvel, like I think they call them Marvel Legacy films. Sort of like Blade, Ghost Rider, the X-Men films, Daredevil, you know, like the Fantastic Four of
Yeah.
like 2005, 2007. If like there was initially meant to be sort of like I think it was like a contest of champions kind of thing, or like, you
Mm,
know, they're sort of like Fox's version of Civil War where they teamed up, you know, the X-Men and the Fantastic Four at least. You know, I still want to see like a big team up film, you know, between all of them, and I think it's possible. You know, I think we can get like anything off the ground with enough fan support, and you know, I think
for sure.
people
Yeah.
would like to see sort of like a sort of cringy, you
How
know,
would
like
early
throwback
2000s sort
film.
of? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Like
you know,
angry
if like
Hulk
the
sort of thing.
entire
Yeah.
soundtrack is Nickelback again, you know, like in Daredevil.
Yeah, no, but like that would have been great. You would have had like Blade, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Daredevil, Elektra, Punisher, Hulk. Like that would have been amazing. That actually would have been great. I'd love that.
I think they
It's a good
still need
shout.
to do that.
I know, because like those actors still got it. They still got it. I would like to see that. But for this rating, buddy, I can't remember what we did for Bill and Ted Face the Music. Did we do massive hit or piece of shit or ratings?
We did massive hit or a piece of shit. Because how can we stray
How
from
can
that?
we stray
You
from
know,
that?
as always, we have to go to one extreme. So for today, I would say I find this film good. Like that, I wouldn't say it was great. I would say I had a fun, enjoyable time. I sat through it. I did not look at my phone once, which is sort of a marvel in of itself. Uh, so I would say massive hit, but I would probably give it like a 7-ish out of 10.
I'd agree, buddy. I'd say massive hit for me as well. I had a surprisingly good time with this. I wasn't really bored, to be honest with you. If I were going to go out of 10, I'd probably give it an 8, maybe a 7.5 or an 8. I think what Fox should be proud of this. If this is their last X-Men film, it's a good one to go out on, rather than, you know, Dark Phoenix, even though I think I rated that like a 9.5 or something. Jeez.
Oh, I would say that there's a few films, there's a few ratings that I regret, and I would say that's in probably the top three.
Yeah, me too. It's not bad. I still like it. It's not, maybe not 9.5.
It's probably like a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah, at best, probably. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please be sure, as you said, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts down below. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks very much, Callum, for today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And yeah, hope you guys enjoy the video, and take care.
Bye bye.